Good evening, Mr. Chairman. We'll just run through the agenda very quickly and then give you a few minute break before the hearing.
Sounds good.
So pretty short agenda tonight. For new business, item number one, the applicant has requested deferral. So we're recommending deferral on that one to a date specific, March 13th. So next month's hearing. Item number two at 6848 West State, we will hear that item. And that is the entirety of the agenda. So see you in about 10 minutes.
Okay, thanks. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the February 14th, 2024 Design Review Commission meeting to order. Christina, can you please call the roll?
Semple,
Here.
Rudin,
Here.
Marsh,
Here.
Aguilar, Zuckerman, Erstad, Bull,
Here.
4 present, 3 absent.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have Design Review Commission work session minutes from January 10th, 2024, as well as Design Review Committee, Commission meeting minutes from January 10th, 2024.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Mr.
I move that we accept the meeting minutes from the Design Review Commission meeting and the Design Review work session minutes of January 10th.
Thank you. So moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none. Christina, will you please call the roll?
Semple,
Aye.
Rudin,
Aye.
Marsh,
Aye.
Bull,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have one item up for deferral this evening. It's item number one. It's DRH 23-00391. Location is 6614 West State Street. It's for the construction of a new car wash building and associated site improvements on a property in a C2D zone. This item is deferred to the March 13th, 2024 date. Is there any member of the audience wishing to speak on this item who cannot meet or make the March 13th date? Seeing none in person. Josh, any online? None. And that concludes our items for deferral tonight.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Do we need a motion for that or not?
Yes. we
Mr.
do.
Chairman, I move that we defer DRH 23-00391 to the March 13th, 2024 meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Christina, will you please call the roll?
Semple,
Aye.
Rudin,
Aye.
Marsh,
Aye.
Bull,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next, one item on a regularly scheduled hearing item is item number two. It's DRH 23-00388. Location is 6848 West State Street. And with this, I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Rachel Farrell, Design Review Planner for the City of Boise, and the project before you is DRH-000388. The project is located at 6848 West State Street in a C2D zone. The site contains an existing commercial building, parking lot area, existing landscaping, and a vacant lot facing State Street. The applicant proposes to consolidate the 2 lots and keep the 2 existing access points. One is a shared access with the key bank, and there is a second access just north from a shared driveway. The surrounding area consists mostly of commercial uses with an adjacent residential neighborhood directly east. The applicant proposes to remodel the existing commercial building into a convenience store and construct a new fuel canopy with 6 fuel pumps. The fuel pump canopy would be located in front of the building facing State Street, along with new landscaping, trees, and a 12-foot multi-use path. The pedestrian connections are provided from the right-of-way to the building entrance, and bike racks and outdoor patio seating adjacent to the store are also proposed. The applicant would plant approximately 18 new trees throughout the site and new plantings along the perimeters and interior and the parking lot areas, and also along with the required street trees, the applicant has proposed a retaining wall and additional landscaping planters along the right-of-way behind the multi-use path. The applicant is proposing a variety of building materials with a mixture of neutral colors that creates a soft appearance paired with the contrast of the trees that would help blend with the surrounding areas. The one-story convenience store would be similar in massing to the surrounding commercial developments with appropriate height to width proportions. The proposed State Street is called out in the citywide design review guidelines as being located in a commercial mixed-use block frontage. For this standard, new development can incorporate either a storefront or landscape frontage. So the placement of the fuel canopy structure located up towards the street does not meet the intent, in which is to place ground floor activated uses up at the street to contribute to the visual character of the street and enhance the pedestrian environment. So with that, staff finds that the project does not comply with the design review guidelines and the goals and policies of the City of Boise Comprehensive Plan and recommends denial of the project. In order to obtain approval, the applicant can redesign the site layout so that the development meets the commercial mixed-use block frontage requirement by locating the convenience store up towards the street, incorporating elements that would enhance the pedestrian environment. And with that, that includes my staff presentation. And I know the applicant is here to present as well.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. Any questions for staff at this point? Seeing none. Thank you. Is the applicant present? If you would, please come forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the commission. My name is John Jackson. I'm the founder and CEO of Jackson Food Stores. We're a locally owned and based in the Treasure Valley company. We also operate a store just less than a half a mile from here that is going to be put out of business by an ACHD realignment of Pierce Park. So this is a site that fits pretty well. It's close proximity for our existing customers and employees, and we feel, you know, it'd be a good substitute site that we're losing. We tried to be very sensitive to the neighbors and, you know, with the landscaping, and it's much more robust landscaping than our site that we're losing. And, you know, we feel, you know, to tear down that existing building is, you know, not only a waste of material and energy, but it's very costly, and as opposed to reusing what's existing, which works pretty well for us. So we would ask, under these extenuating circumstances, that you would approve our application. And I'm available for any other questions. I've got my design team that has more detailed knowledge than I do that could also elaborate a little bit more on our project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Jeff Bauer, 601 West Bannock in Boise. Rachel did a great job with the overview, but I did want to add just a few more details. And we do have our architect, Cindy Hubert from BRS. If there are any questions about the building itself, she's available for those questions. So again, the project is fronting on State Street. We are in the C2 zone, and in the C2 zone, this is allowed as a matter of right use, convenience store and fuel station. The property does have an existing 5,200 square foot building that we are planning to remodel and repurpose as the convenience store. The slide is a current aerial with the site plan overlaid on it, and I just wanted to highlight a few of the features. Again, we've been over this to some extent, but you know, based on the existing location of the building, there isn't room behind for the fuel stations. So we are planning to put 6 fueling pumps between State Street and the existing building, bringing, again, architectural features closer to the street front with that canopy and the low wall that's incorporated into the landscaping. Wanted to highlight again the 12-foot mixed-use detached pathway. So again, increasing pedestrian connectivity and safety. And again, furthering the State Street corridor plan there. As Mr. Jackson mentioned, robust landscaping here. So we do have street trees. So between State Street and the multi-use pathway, we're going to have street trees. And then behind the pathway, there's another layer of landscaping as well, which includes trees and shrubs. We know this commission looks closely at pedestrian connectivity and wanted to highlight a couple of those features. So if you're approaching from the east side, we have a new pathway you can see running between the property line and the parking, dedicated to pedestrian safety there, no interactions with vehicles. And then if you're coming from the west side, again, another dedicated sidewalk getting you to the convenience store. That pergola that we're going to add, again, that's part of the design standards, the outdoor seating area. That's just to the east of the existing building, and we'll show you some renderings of that here in just a second. So looking northwest, you can see the street trees well there, again, with the low decorative wall and the landscaping. That sidewalk, again, to the right. Here we are looking to the northeast. You can see the wall wrapping around there. Again, just providing some more visual elements as well as separation from the canopy. Here we are looking northwest again, more at the building frontage, showing the canopy and seating area. And here are the building facades. So as the staff report concluded, we meet all of the site design and structural design elements, so we're not going to touch on those. But staff does find that we're not meeting the design guidelines. And primarily that's what we're going to focus on tonight, unless there are any specific questions. So really this analysis comes down to the fact that this project isn't a new development, but it's a remodel. So staff looks at this site's designation as commercial mixed use to insist that it can only meet the design guidelines if that building is demolished and reconstructed on State Street frontage. We don't believe that your design guidelines are that rigid. And in the case of a remodel like this project, the guidelines are clear that relocating the existing building is not required. So we pulled out a couple key sections from the design guidelines here. Per the guidelines, the specific requirements for remodels are set forth on Roman numeral 6. And I've got that on the right side of the screen there. And so we're a level 1 improvement. So the lowest level of remodel type improvement. And basically what you say in the guidelines is that if you're adding minor additions, all you have to do is make sure that those new additions comply. So in this case, that would be the facade update. We are complying, as staff said, the materials look great, the colors meet the standards. And so we feel like we do not need to bring the whole site into conformance based on the design guidelines. There's actually a really helpful figure that goes with this last slide. So level 1, level 2 improvements, and then there's level 3. This figure illustrates that even when you have a non-conforming building, both level 1 improvements and even level 2, which are more extreme than we're proposing, don't require that building to be brought into conformance. It can remain there, say with parking on the front. Wanted just to highlight, beyond the fact that we comply with the design guidelines, which is the standard you're looking at, a few other key benefits in this case to not demolishing the building. I think one of the most important is a buffer. So currently that existing building sits up against a couple single-family residential homes. And if we were to bring that building forward and put the canopy and fueling stations behind, you'd have a lot more traffic, a lot more noise, that fueling use right up against those homes. We don't think that's something the city would like. Those neighbors certainly wouldn't. Again, this building is existing, so it is in context with its surroundings. There's other commercial buildings to our west at that same depth. And lastly, and I think most importantly, again, Mr. Jackson sort of touched on this, but the city's got a lot of policies, especially of late, for sustainability. And certainly tearing down a perfectly good 5,000 square foot building just to rebuild it a few hundred feet to the south doesn't fulfill those goals. So those are both in the mayor's, strategic priorities as well as the city's comprehensive plan. I think it's important not to lose sight of the fact that the design guidelines are a tool to implement the comp plan. And so where the comp plan calls for reuse of buildings, I think it's important to take that into consideration. So again, if this were a new development and we were starting from scratch, certainly agree that that building would be right on the street frontage. But here we're doing a remodel and we think that what we proposed meets the guidelines and we'd ask for your approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Jeff, thanks for the presentation. Can you go back one slide? Can you point out the lot lines?
Sure. The lot line, I'm sorry, Chair, Commissioner Bowl, the lot lines are effectively, both lots consist of the area that's sort of highlighted in white, if that makes sense. And then I'll kind of go back to slide 1, which illustrates the lot lines. And we are doing a consolidation here, so there will be one lot.
So I guess, and maybe question for the other commissioners, but to your point, so the existing building is being remodeled. So you're kind of going through forget what you called it, the level 2. The lot where the new canopy is going is not a remodel. That's a new construction. So I guess, I think we just need to consider that. That's.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
level.
sorry, go
Oh,
ahead, Chair.
no, so the level 1, level 2 piece, that's your guys', has the city designated that as that type of an application? Or is that just what your assumption on where you fit on the improvements?
Chair, I'm not sure the staff report didn't make a specific determination.
Okay.
Looking at the standards though, which is an increase in a building's gross square footage. Again, because we're not increasing any building square footage, we do feel like we're in the level 1 category.
Do you know what the square footage of the canopy is by chance?
I don't. Again, it's not enclosed, so we don't really view that as having a square foot footprint. But I can go back to the site plan here and we can maybe eyeball it. The building being 5,200 square feet, so slightly less than that.
Okay.
And again, even if you were to consider the canopy as a, quote unquote structure, we would then still be in a level 2 type improvement where you can increase the square footage by 50% to 100%. And again, doesn't require a relocation. That's specific in level 2. I think they call that out there. Says the building does not require reconfiguring the site development.
Other,
Mr. Chair.
yeah, it's just simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I get the way that you're looking at it as a remodel on that building. I think what we do need to consider, per Commissioner Bowl, is that, there is a undeveloped portion of the site that is a separate lot. Consolidating it, does it mean that the site is now fully developed previously, or was it not developed on part of it previously and now they just have a new area? To me, that's a little tricky, kind of similar to, I think, the line of thinking that you were going down to, is where if it was just a single lot, if that was all one lot already and that building had been on there and you were remodeling that, I think that, yeah, you're probably right in here. I think that maybe it's not quite as easy as that, unfortunately. Because I think that pad and that lot in the front was probably meant when this whole commercial area was developed for another structure. And then the parking would have been between them. I don't know. That's just kind of the way I'm looking at it, thinking about it.
Thank you, Mr. Simple. Questions?
No, I agree with that. I think it's like, I see the strategy. I think it kind of fails with the two different lots. Like I don't understand how you say, adding a canopy is a remodel. Um,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
but in the end, this will be one lot.
Correct.
So we're not talking about them adding a structure in a separate lot and then remodeling the building at the back. We're talking about a single lot development. And if they don't want there to be a single lot, they won't allow them that consolidation of those lines. So really, whether we like it or not,
Mhm.
we're talking about a single lot development in my mind.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Simple.
Yep, Commissioner Rudine, I think I understand that. I just look at it as, at that point, we're looking at a redevelopment of the site and not just a remodel, because we're adding a lot more stuff to the site than was there. I mean, if they were consolidating the parcels and remodeling that building and leaving the parking how it was, yeah, the parking stays there. I think that the challenge is that they're,
I guess, is there specific questions for the applicant?
No,
Or-
sorry.
Sorry.
We're talking.
Or if you wouldn't
I was
mind,
just
if you
gonna
want to
wrap up and
comment to
say-
some of that dialogue, feel free.
Yeah,
I'm-
looking at the design review approval criteria, they're extensive, right? There are a litany of criteria. We meet all of them very clearly, expressly. And then, there's this gray area down here of design guideline compliance. And frankly, the design guidelines don't speak to this use. There is nothing discussing canopies. There is nothing discussing, remodels into adjacent but contiguous lots that are being developed as one. And so I think, you need to look at the spirit here, which is to utilize existing buildings, provide good design. And you can't, you guys have worked with these more than anyone. The design guidelines aren't science, they're art. And, we believe we comply with the spirit of them. And given that we meet all the other criteria, again, we believe the project should be approved. It's effectively, again, an infill type use with an existing building and a need nearby. So we'd ask for your approval.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I do
Mr.
have a
Simple.
question.
Yep.
So just to confirm, the gas station at the corner of Pierce Park and State Street, which currently, I mean, I guess the configuration is somewhat similar where they have a canopy in front of the building-ish. The building's a little more off to the side. That goes away, and then this one comes online?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Simple, that's correct. And it is kind of an unusual lot. It's kind of snow cone shaped.
Yep.
So yeah, that canopy is kind of out at the V,
Mhm.
and the building is off slightly to the west.
I guess, Mr. Chair, if I can clarify.
Yes, please.
So does the gas station at Pierce Park and State Street, is that one going to be demolished and then this one built, or will it be built kind of concurrently with the demolition of the other one?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Simple, I believe concurrent is the intent.
Okay.
Again.
So that
pending
they
approval.
can maintain business operations and, okay.
Yes, sir.
I guess I'm curious because two gas stations, and I know I got what the applicant was saying where they have to relocate because that realignment. I just was curious how long there might be two gas stations look there. So thank you.
Yep.
Other questions at all for the applicant?
All right. Thank you,
know,
guys.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public wishing to testify? Yes, feel free to come forward. Again, if you would, please state your name and address for the record. Yes, when you get up there. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Olay, and I am the president of the Plantation View Condominium Association. With me is Heather McGinnis, our board vice president. We are the 12-unit condominium complex that is located at 6881 West State Street, directly across the street from the proposed Jackson gas station and convenience store. We support the denial of this project as proposed because of the impact it would have on our residences in our complex. We're realistic and we recognize that this parcel will be ultimately developed. However, we are concerned about how we can mitigate the impact of light, noise, traffic patterns on the units that face State Street. When Come and Go was the proposed project, they had worked with us and offered some enhanced landscaping that would provide a barrier to the impact of the development. And my understanding is their canopy would have been behind the building, so they would have had a building that would have provided a little bit of a, more of a buffer to that. I can provide some specifics in terms of our concerns about lighting and the noise and the traffic pattern that more vehicles going in and out of that area would mean for our complex, if you would like. Anyway, we respectfully request that we be included in the discussions of the impact of this or any other proposal that is eventually approved for this location, so that the ultimate project is a positive addition to the entire neighborhood. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Other members wishing to testify tonight? I don't believe there's a neighborhood association, correct? Okay. Would the applicant like to have any rebuttal or last words?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff Bauer, 601 West Bannock. Just again to highlight, we do have enhanced landscaping. So we have that layered effect. All that was required of this project were the street trees. And we added the decorative wall and the additional trees. Again, we made the design choice in this case to buffer to the immediately adjacent single-family residential, as opposed to the units across State Street. You know, per the ACHD comments, you know, State Street is a state highway, 45,000 cars per day. And, you know, we're hoping to support that transportation corridor with this use, which is allowed as a matter of right. So that's all we have.
Quick question. What is the height of that wall? But I know it's in here
Height of the
somewhere.
wall, 3 feet.
3 feet? Okay.
Building height, 20 to 24 feet.
Questions for the applicant? None?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Real
Mr.
quick,
Semple.
what's the canopy height?
Canopy height isn't specifically set yet, but it's no higher than the building. So approximately 20 feet.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Well, with that, we'll close the public portion of the hearing and bring back to the commission for discussion and a motion. Anybody want to start off with some thoughts?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I guess I just struggle with how a canopy meets the underlying design review requirements. And ultimately just the goals of State Street, you know, having, I forget how staff put it, but, you know, active storefronts on the ground level, I think is the intent here. And I don't think I can support a canopy in place of that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah. Mr. Semple.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I remember when the previous application came through, they weren't reusing the building. I really do believe in reuse, you know, before demolition. I mean, that's something that's extremely important to maintain, you know, our sustainability goals in the city and stuff. I just don't know if it overrides the design review, the guidelines for the street frontage typology that's along there that the city's asking for, which is the storefront on the street, parking behind or to the side. Sensitive to the fact that it's a local business owner too. I mean, the use, I don't think we really, I mean, it's not our purview. That's planning and zoning. If there was an issue with the use, it'd be a conditional use permit. But I think, you know, with per Commissioner Bowles' statements, you know, it's a canopy is an addition outside of that building. It's not connected. I don't know how it's a remodel of that existing building. That's what I'm kind of struggling with.
Other thoughts or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm
Uh,
with Commissioner Samples that it, you know, they're reusing this building and doing a nice job of reusing it. If it were on a in a different zone where you're trying to bring the architecture up to the street, it would be a wonderful solution for that site. So the struggle is the effort that's gone into saving that building worth what the final design is, and that's the struggle in my mind. Obviously, if all things being equal, if this was a blank lot, it would be an easy choice. You wouldn't let them build the building in the back and then put the canopy out front. It would be the other way around. There wouldn't be any debate. But it does mean something to reuse that building. So that's the struggle.
Agreed.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I
Mr.
think I'm also sensitive to the neighbors across State Street too. I mean, I think it's considering that none of the neighbors on the east side where a lot of the buffering is happening are here. Means that they probably don't have a problem with it, and they're not really as impacted because, I mean, we all drive by gas stations and there's a lot of light involved with their canopies and cars coming and going through there. Not that we don't all deal with headlights shining towards our houses, but that's a different design than what was looked at with the previous application on this site, where they seem to be, and I don't have any doubt that there could be some sort of connection between this applicant and the neighbors to sort of work on some of that buffering, some additional stuff. It just seems like it's a lot more impactful than if a building was up there, be a lot less light in that open space right across the street. Regardless of how many cars are going up and down State Street. I mean, it's a busy corridor, but doesn't mean that they don't deserve to have a little bit of buffer from that.
Yeah, it's a little tough on, I think, the light piece and the noise. I think, most of the canopy lights on fuel stations are pretty much flush mount, direct down, not a lot of glare. As kind of presented, this is a very busy street, being State Street. The number of trips specifically for this use is probably minimal compared to from the noise standpoint of any increased noise. The lights, their driveway pieces, it's really probably the east portion, I guess, of the site plan that might impact lights that are shining across the street. Otherwise, I don't think the way the fuel islands are positioned, the lights aren't pointing towards the neighbors across the street. Yeah, I think it really kind of comes down to where we're the reuse of the building, as Commissioner Rudin had indicated, and a brand new structure on a separate lot out on State Street, where our definite goals for State Street is to provide some more pedestrian friendly streetscape. So I think that's where we're at. I think we're all a little bit torn between those pieces. I think one of the challenges we've seen applications that made it work with the building up on the street. The negative side on it is, we're using the building and the cost of construction and everything else certainly impacts the applicant's construction cost. So we do take that into consideration and understand that. But I think from the overall vision of the goals of the city, I think is what we want to take into consideration at this time as well. So at this point, I would be open for a motion if anybody wants to take it, unless there's any further discussion. Or questions for staff or anything else at this point?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr.
I think I do have a question for staff. Is there a mechanism in our code that would allow for, I don't know if it's a conditional use or something, to revise how this site could be laid out? Or is it strictly just the design review guidelines that are, showing that this wouldn't be compliant? I guess, is there like some sort of variance that would allow them to place a canopy in front of a building like this through a different mechanism?
Departures.
Yeah, departure of some sort.
Chairman and Commissioner Semple, if you're referring to the departure, then those are usually the method to which we, look at a different solution or how it would differ from what the normal guideline is.
Mr. Chair, I guess
Yes.
I'm just wondering if they had asked for or looked at the departure criteria, or some other criteria within our code that might allow them to provide different alternatives to landscape buffering or something along those lines that would allow them to do what they're doing.
So in the application, there wasn't discussion of a departure. I pulled up departures, or Josh pulled up departures just now. So the departures in this section as it relates to the commercial mixed-use storefront, frontages, would be in relation to like parking location, sidewalk widths, vacate or facade, transparencies, setbacks, minimum and maximum, and retail space depth. So I'm not seeing one here in terms of like building placement.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought was in that. I just wanted to run through it again in case there was something buried in there.
So the applicant has pointed out a section, so let me look at it for a second. So I'll read it out loud and for you guys to decide, but it basically says that that the city would consider the context of the site and determine whether greater setbacks would negatively impact the character of the area and the spatial definition of the street.
Thank you. Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Semple.
I just don't see how we can get past the design guidelines of where a building needs to be placed within that street typology based on what it is. I mean, again, I appreciate the reuse of a building. It doesn't, I just don't know where there's a criteria where we can look at how this would be considered like a type 1 or the level 1 with the addition of that canopy on the site. I know they're consolidating it, but to me, it feels like a way to consolidate it and then consider it as a remodel, where to me, it's adding additional property. And so then it becomes a redevelopment of the site, even with that building there.
Yeah, I think some good points. Any other thoughts? I mean, I guess if this was a stage 1, if you remodeled the C-store itself, it could open and function with a blank lot out front. And then if the canopy was ever added in the future, would we have approved the fuel portion only right along State Street? Since they're on two different lots.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
another question for staff, if I could. Typically, in a project like this, if you were going to accept their design, if they weren't out of bounds because the building isn't being developed the way the standards read, would the neighborhood been included in what the screening looked like for this thing? If it was an acceptable use and we didn't have this issue, would the neighborhood have been brought into if they chose to, or would you have drug them into this to make sure that that the light was being treated and sound was being treated? But I don't think that's been the case, correct?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Redeen, no, but more specifically, the surrounding properties and owners are notified of the project. So they should know, they should have gotten notification that this project was being proposed. And then also to the neighborhood association can meet on it as well and discuss. So, through city ordinance, neighbors were notified But as far as I know, there was no discussion, and we were not notified of any discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions for staff? Not hearing any.
I'm gonna make a motion and then we can have further discussion if we want to about
Sounds
it.
good. Thank you, Mr. Simple.
I'm gonna move that we deny DRH 23-00388 for the reasons outlined in the staff report.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Patrick. All right, back to discussion. Any discussion on the motion piece?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I mean, in looking at this, I've gone back and forth, but I just don't see how not having the building up front, and I know that we've seen something that has a building up front, and I, again, appreciate the reuse of the building and everything that this applicant is trying to do. It just doesn't fit in with the vision of what the State Street corridor looks like. Regardless of whether they're screening for the neighbors across the street or not. You know, I think that's just a good neighbor thing to do when you're developing a site, but it just feels like regardless of the use, it's putting the elements of the site in the wrong spots. And that's why I made the motion.
Okay. Other discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll. Christine?
Simple,
Aye.
Rudin,
Nay.
Marsh,
Aye.
Bull,
Aye.
3 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
And I guess that concludes our items for tonight. And we are adjourned. Thank you.